Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Eddie Marcus, spokesman and advocate of basic human rights for all people. My motto is, "Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven." That basically means that as an individual, I want to live on this earth as though I'm in heaven. And because I want to do that, I know in order for me to live like that, the people must live like that as well. So I want you to live on this earth as though you're in heaven. Now, it's just not my will or desire that you should live this way, but the power that shaped this big ball put all of the resources above it, in it, and on it, and put you and I here with all of the capabilities, as various as they might be, for the production of all the goods and services that we are familiar with, and so many more that we are still blind to, desired that it would be that way. And in so doing that, he labeled those as inalienable rights. So, ladies and gentlemen, that's what I advocate, that's what I speak for. Now, just so you can understand what I really want to do in a situation like this, in a world like this, in the United States like this, my mission is to change America. Now, there are those who have a mission of changing the world. Perhaps they live in different parts of the world, or they may have the ambition to change the world wherever they're at. But where I'm concentrating my emphasis is changing the United States of America. Now, what prepared me for this? First of all, ladies and gentlemen, let me share something with you. And I hope you don't turn. I hope you will listen to me, because you will get something out of this message. I was born to a mother that was 15 years old. I think she was 14 when she became pregnant with me. I was raised by people who were 80 so years old. I went to church all the time. I heard every story about God imaginable. I believed in God. I believed in Jesus. I wanted to be just like Jesus. But I believed in God most. And you know, ladies and gentlemen, when I say I believed in God, I saw that the people who took me to church every week, and all those other people that were going to church every week, who said they believed in God too, they weren't doing what God requires of them to do. No more than we are doing what God requires of us to do today. But I knew the difference between what God wanted us to do and what we were doing. Now, something else happened that I should share with you, to let you know that I was chosen to do this. Once as a little boy, I found myself in a lake without the ability to swim, or at least the knowledge of knowing how to swim. But when the event came, I found myself out swimming a water moccasin. Now, I never believed that it was my ability. Yes, I did exert what I had, but it was a gift from God to save my life. Now, many of you might say I was just able and didn't know it. Whatever you say is all right with me. I'm telling you what I say. And there was another occasion. I was a few years older. I found myself doing some labor in the fields, the cotton fields of Mississippi, chopping cotton. And one day while out there chopping on a row, I froze. I could not move. And I just stood there wondering what was wrong. And as I stood there, fear, which had come over me, began to subside. And I said, oh well, what was that? And I began to move forward. And as I raised my foot up to move forward, something, ladies and gentlemen, more powerful than anything I've ever experienced in my life, turned me around, sent me running and screaming away from that spot that I was in. And people who saw me yelled at me, what was wrong? And I didn't know. I just ran until I felt comfortable. And after feeling comfortable, I decided to go back and investigate to see what is it that had me so frightened. And as I walked back to that same spot, I picked up my working utensil and pushed the cotton over to the side, leaned it over so I could look. That's where I was standing. Maybe there was something there that was dangerous. And right up in the lying up in that cotton, ladies and gentlemen, was a cottonmouth moccasin. My next step would have been my end. But there was a power somewhere that saved me from that water moccasin in the lake, saved me from the cottonmouth moccasin in the fields. kept me alive. And I say kept me alive because I know, and many of you know, of so many other people who were found in that same position who were not delivered from it. And because I don't see my life as being my own, but my life being for the service of that power that was able to keep me here. And so this is the mission that I'm on. Having worked as a young man out of college in the Veterans Administration in Chicago, having a wonderful life, beautiful wife, a kid, things were fine. But I recognized so much poverty, so much hate in the lives of the people of Chicago. Till I reminisced back on the times when I was a child, and how wonderful that Spirit of God was to me, and how wonderful it is to me even today, but especially at that time. And I chose to stand up for God, to bring some peace, to bring some prosperity, to bring some joy to those people who were suffering in Chicago so bad, and people who were suffering all over this nation. I chose to because I was saved to do it. And ladies and gentlemen, one night as I was driving down the street, 63rd Street in Chicago, I stopped at the corner of Loomis and 63rd. And I was sitting there in the car meditating. I believe B.B. King was playing on the radio. But I wasn't listening to it. I was just focused on the Spirit within inside of me, the Spirit of God. And as I began to pull away, money started raining out of the sky. I looked up at it, and then I began to pull over to the side, get out of my car, and to verify whether it was money or not. Well, I knew right away, because as I pulled over, people saw it. People started running. As you can imagine, people seeing money flying in the air would do. They were running. I got out and verified that it was money, but I didn't take any because I wasn't led. The Spirit didn't say, hold on to it. You got to something. It said, put it down and get back in the car and drive away. And as I drove away, I asked the Lord in prayer. I said, Father, what is this? What are you saying to me? And the Spirit spoke to my heart just as clear as I'm speaking to you right now. It said, my people, all of them, can enjoy life with the abundance of life as easy as this flowing out of the sky. You heard somebody say a window opening and a blessing being poured out. They can receive all of the gifts of life if they just did it my way. My way. You see, God's way is different than man's way. Man's way, in fact, man's God is the founding fathers. Those gentlemen who came here and put up a constitution, and in that constitution designed how people should live in this country. Even though poor whites who didn't own property, and they were poor, they didn't own property, had no rights. People of color had no rights. Women had no rights. The only people who had rights were people who had money. People who had money had the ability to confiscate land, and they had rights. And the Constitution was established on that. And today, when you see people talking about what's right and what's wrong, according to our system, they say the Constitution. Whether we argue about whether something is right or wrong or whether it should be changed or not is based upon the Constitution. Nobody talks about moral rights, God's right and what God has said, but I do today. And I'm asking you, ladies and gentlemen, how many of you love to have peace, love to be prosperous, love to be joyous? And in this, ladies and gentlemen, you would have access to unlimited, unrestricted education, unlimited, unrestricted health care, and a career of choice whereby all of you could participate in the creation of those things that we as a people have decided that were important to us. And because you participated, because you have created, then you are deserving to take from it that which you desire. And ladies and gentlemen, not one nickel, not one dime, not one piece of paper labeled "In God We Trust" is needed to do that. We have the resources, we have the labor supply, and we got the need, and all we got to do is do it. That is what God is calling us to do. And in so doing, there will be no poverty. There will be no crime and violence in our cities and states. There will be no pain and suffering from that which we have fixed. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I want you to know that this is my mission. This is what God has given me to say to you. And I'm begging you to change your way of life. Those of you who go to church, I'm asking you to stop just going to church and listen to the preacher talk. That story you've heard all your life. He's telling you nothing new. Don't just go to church and hold your heads down and try to go to sleep. Don't go to church just to start singing some congregational song and get happy and start falling all over benches and stuff. God is not about that. God is about life wonderful life, abundant life, living Mondays through Mondays, night and day, glad to be alive, glad to go to sleep, glad to wake up the next day, and being fruitful in all of that. Ladies and gentlemen, the Republicans, the Democrats, the Tea Parties, and any third party that you are familiar with cannot bring that to you. Capitalism cannot produce it. It has failed. Socialism cannot produce it. It has failed. Communism cannot produce it. It has failed. Fascism cannot produce it. It has failed. Dictatorships. It doesn't matter, ladies and gentlemen. Every system of government on the face of the earth that has ever been tried has failed. And there's one that has not been tried, and that is the way of God. Now, the way of God is easy. It is simple. I know when you hear the president talk about this, talk about that, it seems to be a very complicated matter, and you're wondering, can it actually happen? But the truth of it, ladies and gentlemen, is this. It can happen. Whatever God wants to happen can happen if you, the people, are one with God and decide that you're willing to give it arms, give it legs, give it eyes, give it mouth, give it hands, and create it. I'm standing here before you today asking you to change your way. Change your way. I wrote a letter yesterday to most of the newspapers. Today is the 11th, I believe, of March, and on the 10th I sent a letter to newspapers all over the country. And I said what was going down in Libya was wrong. The things that happened in Iraq was wrong. The things that are happening in Afghanistan are wrong. And other parts of the world. But I mentioned these three because you are familiar with them. They are all wrong. I said that when we went into Iraq, we said we were to liberate the people, but the people weren't fighting to liberate themselves. The same in Afghanistan. But we were there. In Libya, people are fighting for liberation. And nobody in the world is helping them to stop being killed. And I asked myself, what's going on? We did it for a nation that didn't care about themselves or didn't think anything was wrong. And a nation that think there's something wrong and trying to do something about it are standing alone. What sense does that make? None whatsoever. So I believe, ladies and gentlemen, that when all of the stuff we hear a black president say is no different than that which we hear a white president say, it doesn't matter if it happened way back yonder or when it happens right today. It's a reshuffling of the same old rhetoric. And it's not going to do anything different than what we already have. Ever since the beginning up until now, we at the end of the day had some financially okay, economically okay, some poor. And ladies and gentlemen, when you have a system that creates poverty, you have reasons to build jails because that system is going to create criminals against the system that you've established. I'm asking you to rethink this thing. I'm asking you not to be violent, but to know the truth and stand up for the truth. Stop worrying about what somebody say is legal. Stand up for the truth. I want you to know that you don't have to bite your tongue. God asked all of us to treat each other right. But there are times when they don't treat us right. But God is also asking us, when someone does not treat you right, don't you take it. Why? Because if you take it, you have made them God over you. God has made none God over you except the Almighty God, our Father. Nobody else is supposed to control your life but the Almighty Father. And let me say this last thing before I go. You ladies out there, you are equal with men. No man has any right to suppose that he is any superior to you. And any man that thinks he is superior to you will later on think he's superior to another man. In fact, they already do. So I'm saying, come together. Come together. Go to organizations that are out begging government for this and that. Show some love. Show some brotherhood. Draw them into your circle. Draw them into your fold. Show them that you love them. Come together and let their problem be your problem. And all of the problems put together are the people's problem. And let the people resolve the problem. Not some politician saying he's going to do something for you who has been bought to serve another. The power is in our hands, ladies and gentlemen. And it is time we take it. This is Eddie Marcus saying thank you so very much for this, your time that you've given me. And I hope by God that you're ready to change. And when I say change, I mean change that we can live with. Bye-bye.